Yes, thanks again for having me. My name is Arthur Schaper. I am the organization director for MassResistance. We are the international pro-family group that makes the difference. Thank you again, Mr. Walters, for inviting me to speak on the issue of LGBT in the schools. I will bring out the framework a little further. It is really sad to see how this destructive agenda has become so pervasive in our public schools. But I am very encouraged by the parents who've been fighting back. It's going to be kind of interesting when they talk about the type of LGBT historical figures they're going to be teaching about. Perhaps James Buchanan, the only president who never married. They definitely want to talk about Harvey Milk. They present him as some kind of a civil rights hero when the fact is he was an inveterate pederast who took advantage of young children who struggled with their sexual issues, who ended up on the streets. He brought them in only to take advantage of them. Of course, we've seen this whole agenda being presented as another iteration of the civil rights movement when nothing could be further than the truth. People are born black, but they're not born gay. They're not born in the wrong body either. And it's welcome to see more African Americans taking a stand against this perversion. Even Martin Luther King Jr. himself counseled young men when they were struggling with these issues. He didn't celebrate it, he didn't support it, they didn't march alongside with him. He said, "You've got a problem, get help." Didn't hate. That's actually a form of love. So, the science has actually laid this out very clearly. And any discussion about hormonal imbalances are incidental, those are environmental, they're not genetic. The LGBT movement, it is anti-life, and let's state it very plainly, it's racist. They're targeting low-income communities that are black and brown. They wouldn't pull this crap in Manhattan Beach, but they'll do it in Anaheim. This whole agenda, it is fraught with lies. It's not about love, but it's based on self-loathing, bitterness, hate. We hear all this talk shoved in our faces. Love is love. Everyone is welcome here. But the truth is, there is nothing tolerant or loving about teaching children behaviors that will cut their lifespan short. Now we're dealing with 4 states, including ours, where kids are expected to learn the so-called contribution of LGBT individuals to history. But thankfully, in this state, and I know the parents personally, they're just taking their kids out of the schools altogether. That absolutely deserves applause, because that's where the front line begins to fight. Mass resistance. We're not just interested in saying, you can have your LGBT, you can have your gay marriage, you can have your transgenderism, just don't teach it to our kids. Because here's the common problem, and I get blowback from this even among conservatives, but that's all the more reason I'm glad to be here. You have to hit this agenda at its core. You have to point out that it's a lie. No, you're not born that way. You may have been abused, you were neglected. This is the case every time. People might say, that is too sweeping a statement, but that's just a fact. When an adult or even a child is engaging in a behavior that's based on a lie, there's a problem. This isn't healthy. How absolutely true it is. This is not the California Healthy Youth Act, it's the California Unhealthy Perversion Act. That's how it should be properly referenced. We really though have to hit at the core of this whole agenda. It is not enough to take your kids out of school, to put them into a homeschool. And if you don't believe me, go back to 2018 when you had the assemblyman from Riverside attempting to put a Nosus Discipio law to upend homeschooling. He would have required every homeschool program to have fire alarms or other types of material to ensure safeties. Now, thankfully, there were more parents surrounding the state capitol to shut the thing down, and the bill died in committee without a second. But they're not going to stop there, folks. There has to be a cultural shift in this state. LGBT is wrong. It's not okay. Being gay is not okay. Yes, I just said that. If I can't say that in Anaheim, we got a problem. Don't forget, who was the congressman who used to represent this area? The same guy who lost by voter fraud in '96. It was Rob Dornan. And he had the guts to say that on the floor of Congress. It's not gay. It's destructive. It's not something to celebrate. Just want to point that out. Now, in Mass Resistance, we fought this agenda full on. Starting with what happened in Anaheim Elementary. We were fighting this last year into the early parts of this year. They had a Harvey Milk Day at the elementary school. And we were the first ones to talk about this in the meeting. That's a district, vast majority, Hispanic, Black, most of them don't speak English. So when LGBT is brought home by the kids, the parents don't even know what's going on. But when we started informing them, Shonda and I and other parents, we were informing the churches what was going on too. And then eventually, and we saw the staff with Safe Zone badges. There were LGBT flags being promoted in the district offices, but they did it quiet-like. So they do it subtly, so that the general public doesn't know, and the mothers and fathers who are too busy working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their kids' head don't have the time to fight it. But because we badgered them and hit them hard, Harvey Milk Day was retracted. Even the librarian admitted they had to take the rainbows. They had to take the rainbows off the walls. And I've got to clarify this for the sake of time, sorry. They don't have a rainbow. It's a 6-color flag. A real rainbow has 7 colors. So let's stop with this take back the rainbow. It's just reclaim the rainbow. It's not theirs. They can't have it. It's always been ours. It's time for us to take a stand in that regard. Anaheim Union High School District. Some of you were there. Some of you helped out to speak against this. They had Planned Parenthood. I call them Planned Murderhood. That's what you should call them. It's time for us to take the part in that. That's who they really are. Planned Murderhood was implementing this curriculum in Anaheim Union. And there were parents there saying, no XXX sex ed in our schools. Shonda led the fight to bring them in there. One of the mothers, having to speak through an interpreter, talked about what her son had experienced in a 7th grade class. The son saw an actual rape occur in a video. That's sex ed in Anaheim Union High School District. The uproar was enough that the program was removed in that school. But there are a whole bunch of other schools in the district that were still going to have to succumb to that program. So we showed up and pounded them harder and said, you need to remove this entire curriculum. It is biased, it is inappropriate, it is not sensitive to the culture here. You don't even provide the resources that the parents know what's going on. And they removed it entirely for the rest of the year. We have forced these districts to remove them, but here's the problem again. We're still seeing it in other programs. You see how they can push it onto your kids in the history classes. There's no opting out of this gender identity nonsense. And so this is where I come into the larger scale of what needs to happen. We need to have a new spirit, a new zeitgeist, a new mindset. One that is militant about this. The pro-life movement didn't throw up their hands when Roe versus Wade passed. In fact, that's what ignited them. We need to have that same kind of militancy that has turned LGBT into another set of civil rights, when in fact it is an uncivil, immoral, biological wrong.
Amen.
And it's time for our elected officials, even the Republican ones, even the conservative ones, to have the guts to say this. Yes. The only LGBT we should be celebrating is liberty, God, Bible, truth. I can't stress this enough. The pro-life movement, they're militant. They don't take no for an answer. Congress has now, the minority has 85 times tried to pass a born alive bill. 85 times in 6 months. So how much time do I have left? With the white light?
1 minute.
Okay. When it comes to the pro-family movement, we should be just as militant. We have to have the courage. We have to have the courage to make a few claims very clear. No, you're not born that way. You're born in the right body. You don't have to change it. When people say, come out of the closet, let's tell them the truth. They're coming out of the closet and entering a prison. Let's get them out of the prison. Let's get them out of the bondage of these lies. Yes, let's have equal rights for all, but not special privileges for some. It is okay to say, it is not okay to be gay. We have to have the courage to say that too. That's what we do. That is our fight. If you want to join this pro-family movement, please see me afterwards, or you can sign up at the back table. Thank you so much for your time.